Good evening, everyone. Welcome tonight to our town council meeting, and it's September 11th. And so, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Jack Perry,
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky,
Here.
Michael Del Santo,
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo,
Here.
William Dietzick,
Here.
Tom Lombardi,
Here.
James Morelli,
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Victoria Triano.
I am here. Would you all stand for the prayer and the moment of silence, please? This evening, we are going to have a moment of silence because it is 9/11. Many of you were at the ceremony this morning, and it is so important that we as a community continue to remember. Also, I would like us to remember Officer Robert Garton from Hartford and his partner who's in the hospital, Brian Kearney, in this moment of silence as well. Every day, our first responders put their lives on the line, and we need to always remember their sacrifice and their family's sacrifice. So, having said that, I'm not sure who's leading us in prayer, and then we'll follow it with a moment of silence.
Heavenly Father, open our eyes this evening to the truth and reality of every situation that we encounter. Give us solutions that are the best for our community now and in the future. Keep your hand upon Southington and continue to make her great. Amen.
Amen. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Oh, no, you don't sit down. Don't sit down.
Calisthenics.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now you may be seated. Thank you. Before we open up councilperson's communication, I wanted just to say that.
Minutes, Madam Chair?
And,
Minutes.
yes, of course. May I have a motion on the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Before we go into councilperson's communication, I did just want to make mention of the fact that Chris and some of our friends on the other side of the aisle were talking last time about the importance of police, and we all certainly agree. However, we are going to discuss it, not at tonight's meeting, but we think it's best if we wait till the chief is here and gives his report on the safety and security of Southington, which is going to be at our next meeting. And at that time, the council can ask questions of the chief, and we can discuss it in much more depth. So I spoke to Chris about that. He's okay with that, and so we're going to move on. Councilperson's communication, who would like to start?
Chair,
Yes?
So many of us this morning were at the ceremony, for the 9/11 memorial down in Plantsville, and as usual, it was just a wonderful event. Mr. Town Manager gave a little speech, very nice, and then Ms. Triano also gave a speech. It's just a very solemn event. It's so important that we have it each year. I wish we didn't have to have it, but once again, our first responders, as you said earlier, always need to be in our thoughts. Their safety comes first, and I just wanted to just let them all know that they're in our thoughts all the time.
Thank you, Mike. There were quite a few of us present this morning, and the town was well represented with Mr. Shota and his words, and so thank you, everybody who came out. Who's next? Yes, Paul?
First of all, just thank you to everybody else who put it on, Roger Matthew, Peter Kurtz, and the rest of the team that were involved. I attended the Music on the Green this week. It was a fabulous Led Zeppelin tribute that was sponsored by the Southington Police Union. So thanks for the SPD putting that on, and thanks to the Recreation Department and Dave LaPrey. Another great year. It was very well attended all year. I had been to a bunch of them, and resounding positive feedback from the community each and every time that I go there. So thanks for another successful Music on the Green
Great. Anybody else? Yeah, Chris?
Just a couple quick things. I had the pleasure of attending at Leaf with the chair, the first Flower Power Happy Hour fundraiser at Leaf. It was great, and a great event. Unfortunately, very similar to today, the weather was not cooperating, but just a great event, and it's just a treasure we have in our community. The farm right here in Cambridge has different events.
And I do want to just add one thing in that, Chris, you have been very, very strong in supporting the LEAF program and really have put your whole heart and soul in helping them maintain and actually go even further. So I just wanted to acknowledge you. You're always behind the scenes, but you are very much a part of that program, and I just wanted to say, good job.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then, we don't have an official report, Tom and I, for the apple harvest because it's coming up this week, but just want to let everyone know that Dave LaPrey will be sending out probably this week, if not early next week, information about the vendor maps, the layouts, the tent locations. Like I said, our meeting is this week, but just as it's getting so close, we want to make sure we let vendors know not to worry, but they'll be getting everything. And the official start of the festival this year is September 29th.
Madam Chair, just to Mr. Palmieri, a friend of mine, one of my college buddies, his wife owns a very successful clothing company, mostly online. She heard about the Southington Apple Harvest. She called me last week, said, how do I get a booth? How do I get in? I said, sorry, it's sold out.
That's right.
And I told her next February, let me know, we'll see if we can try to squeeze you in. But this is how far the apple harvest goes.
And we actually have a wait list even for this year. There
Okay.
were so many people that wanted to get in, so
let her know.
we'll add her to the list.
Yeah, very good, I'll do that.
Very good. Who's out? Who else? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Now, please. yeah.
So I just also, being there this morning at the 9/11 ceremony, everything that you all have said already, and I just really want to thank our police department, our fire department, our first responders for everything they do to keep us safe. It is a wonderful ceremony. It is, it's not great that we have to do it each year, but we need to not forget
Yes.
what happens. So a privilege to be there. I just wanted to give a brief update on public transportation and a bus route through Connecticut Transit. Madam Chair and I and the town manager were able to be on, I guess you'd call it a tour. So we took the bus route. So there's Connecticut Transit is hooking up Plainville Center, a bus that will go from Plainville Library, coming into Southington, into Queen Street, with certain stops along the way. So what will happen is residents can now get to Plainville, and they can hook up with buses that will go to Bristol, New Britain, and Hartford, I believe, right?
Connects
And-
the whole Connecticut bus line.
It would connect them to the bus line. So I want to thank Brian McLaughlin from Connecticut Transit, who invited some of us to be on that, the tour last week. Basically, they're looking at where the stops could be, make sure they're ADA compliant, and they're still reviewing it. So we'll know as soon as they can give a report. They want to get this going this fall. So that's just really great for Southington residents that need that transportation, and they can get to other places in the state.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jack?
Madam Chair, thank you. So last week, I had the opportunity to attend the town assessor's presentation on property taxes, and it was very informative. So I just wanted to give Teresa Babin a shout out that she did a phenomenal job. She mentioned everything is going to be on the town's website as well. So I think this was the third one she did. I think it was the first or second one she recorded. So that will be there as well. There was a good turnout at this one. It was at 7 p.m. There was over 25 residents there, so very informational. There was a dialogue of some questions, some good questions as well, because even me as a small business owner, I had a question, because again, one question then leads to another question and such, so it was a great opportunity, and she did a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to encourage anyone that couldn't attend. She put all the documents on the town's website as well as the presentation from the first one. I had Another thing as well, I had a town contractor reach out, and I know I reached out to Mark Shota as well as the chief of police. So in the town of Southington, any road construction projects requires the contractor to hire the police department for traffic control. And there was a contractor that, a local contractor in town that was upset that there was a contractor doing work from out of town and they weren't following the rules. And it was multiple days, they'd called, so the chief, obviously addressed it because it was a safety concern. It was right on Route 10 even. There was no signs, and one of the days it was raining. So with that being said, I don't know if it's something that we could look into and just, see what the process is, revisit it. I was told that, through the permitting process through the engineering department, you get notified of what you have to do, but it doesn't seem like there's any real enforcement. And it's not fair to our local businesses that understand what the rules are, and then out-of-town businesses are coming, and it's a safety concern, because again, it could put the town at risk liability-wise, that if we're not, enforcing what we have. So I just have some concerns with that, and maybe that's a discussion that we could bring up at a future meeting.
Sure, those are very good questions, Mr. Perry, and I think that when the chief is here, that might be something you might ask on the record or follow it up later on, but I think that's a very good concern.
It just seems like there's a lot of confusion of how it's been done, and, some people are saying it's the officer's responsibility to notify and such, and then I was told it's the engineering department to follow up, but nobody's going out there to see when they're doing the construction or such. So again, maybe they have to sign off when they're getting the permits, a special sheet that outlines what our rules are for safety in our community.
Very good.
And then lastly, exciting, the trolley survey, I'm going to close it this week, and I've gotten over 600 responses, and it seems very positive, and it's again, it stimulates the discussion of how to get this cost neutral, as well as how it could help the community. And I want to just thank everybody that did participate in it for the participation, because it gives a different perspective on things. And when you have over 600 people giving feedback, it allows you to look at things in different ways, and some people brought up ideas that I didn't even think of. So it's exciting to see the community participate and obviously give their thoughts on it. So I would love to obviously share that maybe with Councilman Del Santo, because we spoke about it at the economic strike, and anybody else that wants to see it, I would love to share it, because I think it's great to see the community get involved and give their feedback.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I want to make sure everybody gets yes, Jim.
Madam Chair, thank you. I know that a lot of people that I went to school with watch this telecast, and I'm sure that there are some people here that know that last week was a very sad week for Southington, in that Benny Summers Modulo passed away. For those that don't know, Benny was in the class of 1976, 65 years old. He was one of a group of pioneers that were integrated into the Southington school system along with the rest of us in the early 70s. So he was one of the oldest ones that I know that are still alive. There's a couple more that are around. But it was a very sad day for me in that my family was very involved in this happening, the integration of special ed in the schools in Southington. And so again, it was a sad day. Benny lived in a group home. He lived a full and prosperous life in the group home. He participated in local events. He held a job locally, and he was always upbeat and happy. And he was always eager to tell a joke, sing a song, or wink at a pretty girl. So I needed to actually mention that. And I know that many of us that went to school with Benny and some of the other special ed kids are going to be very sad to hear that Benny passed away.
Yeah.
So rest in peace, Benny.
Yeah.
And thanks, Southington, for
I knew
supporting the people with
Benny.
special needs.
I knew Benny. He was all of those things. I didn't know he had passed. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? I have a couple, so if we're all set, if I could just quickly go through them. I wanted to thank the 2 Eagle Scouts for their work. They had their Circle of Honor last week, and I was able to get to that, and it was quite inspiring. These Eagle Scouts are amazing. They're leaders, and they're folks that take them on in the Scouts, they are amazing also. So I wanted to thank. And also, as I said to Val before we even began, this Sunday, I was invited to First Church, the Congregational Church in downtown Southington, because they are starting their 300th anniversary in Southington. They were in Southington before there was a Southington. They have been here for 300 years. They were here before the Declaration of Independence. They were here through every single war, Vietnam, First World War, Second World War. They were there to see the Emancipation Proclamation. And what an honor it was for me to be there. And it was absolutely wonderful, and I want to take just a minute to again congratulate them. All year now, their actual, and Val, I'm sure could give me exactly, but their actual date for their 300th anniversary is next May, I believe. Is
I'm
that
not sure
true?
of the exact date.
Okay, we won't.
Exact date, but it is in May.
It is quite.
There are going to be events
All year,
which will be
yeah.
great.
So we can all participate and enjoy that and celebrate with them. It was, I'll tell you, having been on this council a long time, that church has been a conscience many times for us on this council, and through each pastor, and so I just want to congratulate them. The other thing involves Councilman Palmieri. He and I were invited to the police station on Thursday. Mr. Mark Pelka from the governor's office came down to talk to us and our police department concerning the car burglaries and the recent thefts that we've been experiencing. We are not unique in that, by the way. Many towns are going through exactly the same thing. But it was very, very good that he was there. The prosecutor from Bristol, I think, was there also, and he gave a quite insightful overview from his perspective, trying to decrease the young crime that we see every day, not only in Southington, but everywhere. I want to specifically remark and give thanks to Chief Daly. He was terrific. And Detective Sergeant Jim Arnott has been here to talk about things that they're dealing with, and Detective Sergeant was there, Armac. John Marinholtz is the union representative. Bill Thompson is working undercover with crime in Hartford and other places. I just wanted to say thank you. It was quite enlightening. I don't know if you had anything, Chris, if you wanted to add to it. It was very challenging. I thought these officers stood and made a great presentation. I thought it was very, very good.
And for the rest of the council, the chief will be here at the next meeting, which is why we talked a little bit
Yes.
about that. And
To go
the
over.
presentation that we saw will be given to the entire council.
Yes.
And the town manager was there too.
Sure, the
Went
town
over.
manager was there.
So all that information will be shared with the council. It's disturbing, the amount of crime in our community, and the chief went through how that's grown, really, since COVID. We saw
Sure.
a little dip then, but then it's since increased. So we're really trying to work to address it in a multi-pronged level,
Yes.
locally and at the state level.
Very good. And also with the safety presentation that the chief is going to do, our legislators are going to be here. Unfortunately, Chris Poulos, our Representative Poulos, cannot make it. However, I've given him permission to come when he would like to come and address some of these issues with us whenever he can make time in his schedule. But we have 3 of our legislators will be here and for that, so circle your calendar. It's on the 25th, I believe, is the date.
If I can just add to that, and
Yeah.
I've already actually reached out to Representative Poulos
Yes.
as a result of this meeting, because like I mentioned there are some things that were requested from the state's attorney in New Britain and the juvenile assistant state's attorney
Yes.
that are, in my opinion, things that could be changed relatively easily and quickly.
Yes.
So I've already spoken to Representative Poulos.
Excellent.
He shared, unfortunately, he's going to be out of state. He won't be able to be here. But we're already working on
That's
finding
wonderful,
solutions
because he
for
was
that.
very helpful about expediting these cases so that the young offender realizes that there's ramifications, and so it was very good. And finally, I'm sorry to take so long, but I do want to get this out there, and it's also for the council. This is for the council. This Thursday, September 14th, the chief of police, and I've been working with him on this, September 14th at the Marriott,
West Street?
on West Street, yeah, yep. There's going to be a meeting for general managers of our hotels, because they also have been victims of crime. And so Chris Laporte, who's with us right now, he's our community safety specialist. He is going to go through some of the things that our hotels can do, working in partnership with our local police department to see what we can do about some of the crime that we've seen. It's stealing tires and all. And so, Chris, is there anything you want to add to this? Where are you, Chris? There you are, Chris. I'm looking over here. Is there anything you'd like to share on any of this?
If you can go up to,
Microphone.
you want to catch every word.
He has already met with the Marriott and Omar at the Marriott, and they came back to me and said, what a great job. They were so happy that you came.
Yeah, so last week I met with Omar, he's the manager and the district manager of the Courtyard Marriott.
Courtyard. Yep.
And we already put some stuff into play. I did a lot of extra patrols throughout the night, and they're also going to put like a security car out there with flashing yellow lights just for a deterrent. And also, I don't know if you've ever seen, remember the signs we made up when they first started breaking into cars, lock your doors,
Yep.
take your valuables out? I brought them up a sign, they posted it in the parking lot for people to see when they come in and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about on the 14th when we go up there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think it's so great that we're going to deal with all of the major hotels in town at the same time, because then we can have a continuity of oversight and a continuity of going forward. Chris, I'm so happy that you're here tonight just to mention that, and we look forward to your, but it's open for council members. We're trying to keep it with just the hotels because it is security. So, but we're going to start at 10:30, and there's going to be refreshments on the Marriott, and it won't go very long, but at least it'll help our hotels to get a grasp on some of this. So I appreciate it very much. So you're all welcome to come on up, but it's not open to the public. So, and that's it, and I'm sorry I went on and on, but there was so much going on. Is there any last moments for councilperson communication? Hearing none, let's get going. Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our meeting last Wednesday, the 6th, at 4 PM here in this room. A couple of highlights from the meeting were that the transfer station, after our discussion, some of the members of the transfer station, the employees are going to be wearing body cameras. They won't have them on, but if there's a situation, if there's an incident, they will turn them on, just so we can get a good realization of what's going on up there. I know we had talked about this at our meeting, that sometimes the staff up there is being treated very rudely and unprofessionally. So they'll make sure that they'll have cameras, so there's evidence of any issues that have happened. I just want to remind everyone to make sure they're respectful when they go to the transfer station. Those are people who are working, and they should be treated with respect. Leaf bids are due on the 26th of September. So if you're planning on bidding on picking up leaves, you have until the 26th to get your bid in. The Barnes Museum parking lot is under construction right now. The town sent a crew out there, and they did all the rough-in work for it. And later on our agenda, we do have an action item for Martin Livero Contractor to finish that parking lot. The Recreation Park Kiddie Playscape is getting replaced. Our staff is there prepping the area right now, and then once that's complete, M.E. O'Brien is going to be installing a new kiddie playscape at Recreation Park. Panthorn Park is going to be paved this year, sometime in October, the same way Recreation Park was paved last year. They did a great job, so hopefully that will continue there at, Panthorn Park, I said it right. The Marion Avenue over Humeston Brook Bridge is done, and I'm not sure if anyone had an opportunity to go by and take a look at it. It looks gorgeous. It looks fantastic. They did a great job. They did it before the deadline, so it was open before school started, and we're very happy to see that actually come off our Public Works agenda. It's been on for years. So it looks great. They did a fantastic job. So if you're on Marion Avenue, take a look at the new bridge. It looks great. Mr. Palmieri had an incident at the Memorial Park pool, and he gave a shout out to our first responders once again, members of the Highway and Parks Department, the DEP had to come out. There was a leak of some chlorine or a chemical leak. And so our first responders, as usual, were the first ones there. They did a great job. Our Highway and Parks Department staff were there, Johnny on the spot. They did a fantastic job, so kudos to all those involved. Later on in our agenda, there's also an action item for EV charging stations. I know this has been on the agenda, off the agenda, on the agenda, off the agenda. It was taken off back in the spring because we had thought that wouldn't be a good time right now to be spending any taxpayer dollars to have EV charging stations put in that town. We just found out that the town was awarded a grant of over enough of the money that's needed to put these EV charging stations in. So it's on our agenda for later. There was some questions with regards to who would be, how would the town get reimbursed for people using the EV charging stations? So the town manager is working on that along with Annette. We want to make sure that there's a zero cost to the town. We want to provide the EV charging stations because we want to, be part of this initiative, but we also don't want it to fall on the backs of Southington taxpayers. So more to follow on that, but it is an action item for tonight. We're going to try to get the answer to all of those questions. The street scan situation, I know some folks have been unhappy about some of the roads in town. So the town manager and myself and Ms. Turnquist had an online meeting with the heads of street scan, and they're working on some enhancements to the project. We won't have any information until probably our December Public Works meeting. So that's on hold right now, but they are working on getting some better numbers going forward so we can really drill down and find out which roads are in most need of repair here in town. And they gave us some good ideas too, so more to follow on that. So as I mentioned earlier, the Martin Lavero contracting situation at Barnes Museum is on later for our agenda, and I think that's just about it. I'm not sure, Paul or Chris, if I missed anything.
Pretty thorough.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Related to the charging stations, I did want to have a discussion on, you mentioned some of the questions that came up, but, I'm hesitant to, approve. I appreciate that it's no taxpayer money to install, and we will be charging a fee. My main question is who actually owns these units? And is that money going to flow through the town, or is it a private entity that owns it? Just because I think that, owning and operating fuel services for private vehicles is not really one of the core competencies of the town. So if we can get some of those questions answered, I'm not totally opposed to it, so I don't want to be the.
I don't know, Mark, if you want to chime in, but
I figured we'd do it during the discussion when we get to that.
Sure.
point.
Thank you.
Very
I
good.
think Mr. Perry has a question.
Yes,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Perry?
if you would address that.
Yes, I had a resident reach out in regards to the Butternut, White Oak, and LePage Drive. So when you're doing the street scan, when you're doing the street scan, I know the last one was 2019, and then the data kind of didn't compile with the last street scan, but if we could maybe look at those roads and just make sure that, if they need to be addressed, that they are being addressed.
Yeah, we did receive an email, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, may I respond?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we received some data back late this afternoon from Ms. Turnquist. I'm not sure if you saw her email. Once again, we are working closely with StreetScan to make sure those numbers are accurate. So they're definitely on our radar, those three streets specifically. I believe it was LePage.
White Oak
White Oak
and Butternut, yeah. I just, again, if the residents are here when they go to speak during public communication, we won't be able to have that dialogue. So
Absolutely.
just want them to know that
It's on our
we hear
radar.
them and, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe we can read the email while they're
I
here
can do
this
that. evening. I can
Actually, you
read
can read it right now. if you
it.
want.
Sure can.
Maybe, because I thought
Mike,
the
could you
email was
also
very
ex-
informative.
You also explain the program that we have for road replacement for the people that don't know.
Sure, yeah, StreetScan, I mentioned it a couple different times, but StreetScan is a company that went out about 4 years ago, and they went to every road in town, and they graded them. And they graded them on levels of how much repair the road should need, whether it be a complete rip-up and redo, whether it be seal cracked, or whether it be just overlay, no chip seal. It's not in the works.
It's actually, it's a grade, if I may.
Go for it.
Street Safe, what they did is, the reason why is we wanted to go this route is because we want to take the human element out of it. As you know, many years ago, the question became, well, how come this road was done, this road wasn't done? Who lived over here? And so we got away from all that, and we hired Streetscape. Streetscape gives a grade from 0 to 100 on all our roads. So obviously, when we did Streetscape originally in 19, and then now again in 22, they went out there again in 22, late 22, early 23, all the roads were graded. It's on the town website. Everybody's roads in alphabetical order has a grade on it. We had roads, believe it or not, in the 30s. So 30 is, 0 is the worst, 100 is the best. We had roads in the 30s, which are almost impassable roads. So for the last bunch of years, we've been trying to get those roads done. We got ourselves up to the low 50s now. So we're currently between 50 and 55, the roads that were done this cycle. So what Annette will say in her email is that when they calculate the new numbers and put it together for the next 3 years, which she does in 3-year cycles, and it goes on the website. If you ever look at the website, you'll see the roads that were done in 21, 22, 23. And what they're going to do is, she'll calculate those. So right now, the roads that we had this year were probably in the low 50s, 54, 53, somewhere in that area. The roads, I think, the email I saw, the roads you're talking about are 55 to 60. So that's currently where they are. They weren't on this year's cycle because we haven't got to those numbers yet. So I think they're between 55 and 65, I remember, based on that. So you can read the email.
Sure. Annette responded today at 3:50 PM. Mark, as you know, StreetScan completed a road assessment in the fall of 2019. The assessment assigned a pavement condition index between 0 and 100 for every road or road segment on longer roads. The worst road would be 0, and a brand-new road would be 100. We are working on the roads with the lowest PCIs first. This year, the roads that were scheduled for construction had PCIs mostly in the mid-50s. There were a couple of segments that had higher PCIs, but they were included because they were on roads with lower segments in the 50s. It would not make sense to skip over 300 feet of a 1,500-foot-long road. At the time of the assessment in 2019, Butternut, White Oak, and LePage had PCIs as follows. Other than the segment of Butternut between Berlin and White Oak, all of the PCIs are higher than the mid-50s. In fact, the majority are in the 60s. 3 segments are in the high 60s. Butternut, 4 segments, are 55, 59, 67, and 68. White Oak is 67, and LePage is 62. Since roads deteriorate at different rates, utility projects occur, etc., StreetScan recommends having a new assessment completed every 3 to 5 years. We have had this done, and StreetScan is finalizing the results. I'll be working with the new PCIs late fall, early winter to plan out the next 3 to 4 years of road projects. If the PCIs for the roads in the Butternut, White Oak, LePage neighborhoods have decreased, then they may be up for consideration. I will not know until I have the opportunity to work with the numbers from the most recent assessment. Once the tentative schedule for the next 3 to 4 years is complete, it will be posted on the Highway Parks webpage along with an alphabetical list of all the new PCI data for every town road in Southington. If you need further information, please let me know.
As Mr. Perry did say, when you come up, if you're going to be speaking during public communications, we don't respond. We want to hear from you. And so that doesn't mean that we don't do anything about it. We just want to make sure that you have access to express yourself. So that's that. Yes.
Can we just ask, could somebody forward that to the town clerk since you read it?
Sure.
Have it put into the minutes?
Excellent. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is that it now, Mike?
That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to the Library Building Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our meeting last Wednesday, the 6th, and everything is on schedule at this point. There is a possible slip in the schedule with a discovered pipe on the property and a DOT requirement for a manhole that needed to be different than what we had expected. That looked like it would be a delay for the project, but Whiting Turner has done a workaround, and it looks like we'll be able to have that manhole replaced and in place in time to be back on schedule. So looks like everything is a go, everything is great. Let's see, it's like by the end of this week, we'll have a website up, both on the town website and the library website, that will be an interactive website from the Whiting Turner Construction Company that will tell you what's going to happen this week, next week, and what to expect. We'll probably have some photographs on there, and we'll probably have some comment from the library staff and maybe even myself. That will also include a camera that will have pictures from the site. So we'll also there's a project underway to spruce up the black drapes that are on the fence. So be on the lookout for some creative changes to those drapes.
Very good. Any questions? Yes, Chris?
Just one, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think, Mark, through our conversation, the Friends of the Library have raised $350,000 approximately out of the $900,000 they're trying to raise.
We have 365, I believe, at this moment.
365. So just thank you to the group that are collecting donations, because they're already more than a third of the way there, so that's really fantastic, and I just want to give them a shout out for all their efforts.
Absolutely. That's true.
And I did hear from the group that they're holding meetings and they've been very successful, so they're very confident that they can make their number.
Excellent, very excellent. Let's move, is that it now?
Yes.
Jim? Thank you.
Thank you.
Open space?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had our open space meeting last week. We had a couple special guests that I'd like to start with. Jen Clark and Christina Volpe came and gave an update on a couple-year-long project that they've been working on together. Christina gave a shout-out to Jen at the meeting for perseverance and staying on top of this. There is, as everybody knows, on the Curtis property, a long lineage of the Curtis family in town, and their role also in the Creationist movement. And there's been a lot of studies that Jen and Christina have been looking at, especially Christina, upon the request of the committee and Jen. And it's looking fairly positive that, I guess Christina brought this to some representatives who make decisions about whether a property gets put on the Freedom Trail. And it's looking pretty good that this has a good chance of getting that. So it's being submitted in the month, it's been submitted, and it's going to be heard in the month of October. So we hope to have a formal
That would be wonderful.
response back. And, you know, there's a great initiative going on that Jen is leading with Christina to memorialize the root cellar there that is, you know, still one of the last structures of that period, or the remnants of the structure. And so there's going to be a little historical plaque there that's being donated by Mr. Lovely as a result of the development that was adjacent to that. When the development went in, he had made a commitment to donating that. So Jen has been following up on that. So a lot of good work there. Hopefully in the month of October, we have an update there. Also, yeah, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, you know, for those of us that are born and raised here, there's always been that rumor that, you know, part of the Freedom Trail is there. This is great news because it confirms it, and it will be signified with that plaque that, in fact, we are part of the Freedom Trail that is so important during the abolitionist movement. So thank you.
And I can't say enough about the passion that Jen Clark has and Christina Volpe has on this topic and so many historic topics across town. And with that, I also wanted to just give an update that there is this Saturday a historic tour that's being planned. Again, Jen Clark and Christina Volpe are on this, but there's a lot of different volunteers. Chris knows, you know, some from the Open Space Committee, some from the Historic Society. They've been working with the rec department, with the Calendar House on transportation. And there's going to be 2 buses that will go this Saturday from 10 to 12 on a number of different points of interest around the town to talk a little bit about the history in town. They're going to start over at Bradley Mountain, work their way on the east side of town to the south side of town, and eventually end up over at the train depot and then the west side of town and then towards the center of town. So a lot of, you know, 2 of historic tour packed. There is, Jen is working on a second date for those who couldn't make it because we did have a
They
wait
sold
list.
out. They sold out.
very quickly. And so she's working on a second date. Hopefully we'll hear about that in the next week. More to come on that.
Excellent.
And
Thank
then the
you.
last item, briefly, we worked on a policy for enacting the community garden at the Pleasant Street property, the open space next to the Apollo. If you recall, we've brought water service in from the road. There used to be a farm there with a barn, so we brought water service there. Chris is using it with the students with the Apollo and their gardening efforts. And Chris is expanding those efforts with some chickens. No roosters.
No roosters.
And I think that was to be heard heard
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night at the
PBA.
zoning board of appeals. So we have a Boy Scout who's looking, an Eagle, prospective Eagle Scout who's looking at doing that as a project. And we have enacted a policy, we've tentatively agreed on a policy, which we're gonna finalize next month for the community garden. So if you're interested in participating in the community garden, look later this fall, early this winter for the policy to be rolled out, where you might be able to fill out the form and make a request to get a plot
Sure.
at the Pleasant Street location, as well as the East Street location. Chris?
Just to add to that, this is great, everything that Paul mentioned. Years ago, our Farm Heritage Committee, which was Brian Gorowski, John Myers, Ed Pocock, and myself,
Yeah.
we worked to create a master plan. That master plan is now coming to fruition. So that includes community gardening, which is what we were talking about, and bringing animals back. I know they're only chickens, but bringing animals back in some way on that property. So it's really great to see this come to fruition, so,
So I just have a question.
yes.
Who's going to take care of the chickens, Chris? That's what I want to know. Who's on duty for chickens?
Tomorrow night's meeting.
Oh, we'll find out tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night's
All right. Well, hopefully I'm coming, so I want to
good.
make sure that we handle that tomorrow night. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just have a quick question for Councilman Chaplinsky, and maybe also with Mark Shota. So again, since we're talking about the Curtis property in town, I think it's important that we relook at, or maybe the Open Space Committee could relook at, the upkeep of some of these properties. I went there for Father's Day fishing with my son because it's got a nice pond there, and again, that pond needs to be dredged. And obviously, that's a big issue environmentally, because again, all the silt is kind of backing up there, which then causes flooding and such. So again, I think it's something that we have to maybe revisit. It's great that we have all these properties, we're revitalizing a lot of them, but again, having maybe a bigger master plan as well, because again, a dredge project there, maybe again, maybe a steep grant. There's ways that we could try to, get it ready so that we could try getting some grants to be able to, upkeep these properties. Because again, when we have it and we're land banking, it's awesome, but it's also sad to see a pond not being properly maintained. And obviously, the community can't use it for its best use as well. So I think Mark sent an email to Public Works, and they may have went out there to try getting some of the algae
Valley
blooms.
went out there. We're hoping to maybe use the skimmer out there. So you laugh.
Robot?
The robot skimmer, yes. We're hoping to use that, but that's not going to solve your problem because it's shallow. When it's shallow, it just comes back pretty fast.
Yeah, and earlier in the, two things, earlier in the season, we had a very dry run, and then we've had quite a bit of rain recently, so I think the difference between Father's Day and today is probably pretty stark. But this was on our radar. Actually, it did come up in the last meeting or the meeting before. The same property came up where we had talked to Dave LaValle, and he's gonna keep his eye open for funding for that. We do have a regular maintenance schedule for all open space parcels, so, mowing, haying, things like that. This one is on there to be cut this fall. And we've also had a number of Eagle Scout projects, Boy Scouts, we've had volunteers. So we do a combination of spending from the maintenance account to maintain the properties, to also work with local farmers to promote the farming activity and haying activity. And, we're going to have to look into that pond specifically, because that one did come up at our last meeting.
Yeah, it's very shallow, and in some spots, it's probably, you could see the bottom, so even
You
if
can
we
walk
got.
out quite far,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
on a nice, when we get a real dry spell, yeah.
We did catch fish, just for the record. We
On
had to
one
use-
side.
Yeah, well, we had to use very small
On the
hooks
spring
because
side.
they were tiny fish, but I was determined in getting him a fish, and we got him one.
Well, thanks for bringing it, yeah, we'll continue to be on it, thanks, Jared.
Thank you so much. Anything else for committees? Let's move on. Mr. Town Manager, could you give us your report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item, I'm happy to say, and I thank Jim Grappone and his executive staff of the Supervisors Union. We did come to agreement on the Supervisors Union. The numbers look very familiar to you because it's the same numbers that the rank and file also agreed to. It's a 4-year contract, 2.4, 2.4, 2.4, and 2. As I mentioned before, my goal was to keep an average of about 2.3, which is what Public Works and the Supervisors Union now agreed to. The insurance will remain the same. We do have a 20% premium share, 22% if they do not get their physical. That's going to be in there. Also, I did agree to increase the meal allowance to $15. It was woefully low for dinner. So when they work Thursday nights, we buy them dinner. It was woefully low, and I'm not even sure 15's enough, but we all agreed on $15. Any questions on that?
Mark, can I just ask a quick question on the, on Article 9, the leave provision? Is that a new addition, or is that a change to?
We added some language in there because it wasn't really any position where we go on leave. It was always totally up to the discretion of the manager, so we wanted to put some language in there. So although it's still discretion of the manager, we do want to put a provision in there that in case you are a supervisor, it does give you the ability to take a leave of absence.
Not to exceed 90 days?
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that that could be extended? At the
It depends on the
discretion?
manager. 60 days, 90 days for a supervisor is a very long time, because otherwise the manager would have to step in and be the supervisor, and we've known that's had to happen in the
Right.
past. So
Right.
normally, it's usually a very serious situation, usually the illness of a spouse or whatever, and it's normally an FMLA-type situation. Or it could be a situation where their parents live out of state and they have to go there for a while. So there are situations that certainly I would agree to, but certainly it's in the manager's sole discretion, so obviously, as the manager seeks it as reasonableness, I don't think there'll be a problem.
It'd be a case by case.
It's always a
basis.
case by case.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Very good.
The next item I had, Madam Chair, is, as you know, it's been a while since either I or previously Amelia and now Jim gave you an update on the monies we received for both ARPA and also for the COVID aspect of it. So Jim is here tonight, and there's a couple of things. Number one is, when I spoke to you originally, we talked about the audits, and at that time, every town was going to get audited. Those rules have changed, but I want to bring you up to speed, and Jim's going to bring you up to speed as to exactly the audits, how we did on the audits, and the fact that we're very proud of how we handled both those funds.
Welcome.
Director Bose.
Thank you, Mark. And Madam Chair, just in answer to the question that you posed a few minutes ago, if you look at the fine print of some of the job descriptions, I think you're going to find that the care of all livestock, chickens included, would fall under the purview of the town manager. So feel free to help yourself
Thank you
with
for clarification.
imposing that. But see, I passed my probation, so
Yeah, you're still an at-will employee, but anyway.
I passed my probation. Anyway, yes, thank you. Mark asked me if I would just update the council on some of the changes that may have happened with regards to the ARPA funding. And to be very brief, so I'll be very brief and then open it up to questions if you like. But basically, in a very summary format, just to go back a little bit, you might remember this, but folks in the audience may not. The town was awarded $12.9 million of federal fundings under the ARPA program. And Mark tries to bump that up to 13 million, but frankly, legally, we can't let him. So it is about $12.9 million. When the funds were first released to municipalities, the federal government was just trying to get monies out there and stimulate the economy and provide relief to those who needed it. And frankly, the rules are being set as you went along. Amelia, I think, updated you folks a year and a half or so ago. What has happened since then in the rules today when it comes to the ARPA funds and how they're going to be subject to audit, if you will, by the federal government it's actually, they've simplified it. The first $10 million of funding that you get is reported to the federal government in lump sum. Okay, there's a quarterly reporting requirement, and I'll get back to that in a few seconds here. But the volume of information that had to be reported must have been so overwhelming they could not handle it. So the first 10 million is lump sum. Anything that gets you over 10 million or above up to your final award has to be reported in detail. Obviously, that leaves us with about $2.9 million that has to be reported on a quarterly basis in very much detail. So much detail, I even brought the last filing that we did. So that, and one other change that the federal government really helped us with is that the towns and the counties and the states get to determine which projects throw them over the 10 million. So we had smaller amounts of 10 million. Then, of course, we have 5 pump stations. And I'm rounding liberally here, so please bear with me, about $1 million each. So it's about $5 million. So it was and we had a very good contractor. The bidder who was awarded the contract for those jobs is very well versed in the ARPA and federal funding. They know what the reporting requirements are. They know what our reporting requirements are, so they've been very helpful. So that was a very easy thing for us to determine. So we decided that the last 3 pump stations that we're doing are the ones that are going to be qualifying for this detailed reporting. So that would be 2.9. That would be let me see, I've got them here, the Juddbrook Pump Station, the Old Turnpike Road Pump Station, and the Patton Brook Pump Station. And this is just to show you the details of this. I know you really can't see. It's double-sided, and there's 13 pages here. It's 26 pages where everything that you have spent on those items that keep you over the 10 million or got you over the 10 million has to be entered into a federal portal. And that information is then kind of flagged by job code, type of work code, et cetera. And if there's a red flag that gets set off, you get sort of a communication immediately. You'll know within a day or so to provide more information, such as uploading invoices, cancel checks, things of that nature into the federal portal. The last quarterly report we did was for the quarter ending June 30th. It's due 31 days after that, so by July 31st. It was prepared by our Assistant Director of Finance, Christina Savigny-Smith, who has run with this since the very beginning. She's been a longstanding employee, and Amelia was sort of in and out, as you recall, for the last couple of years here. So Christina took that ball and ran with it and has done a phenomenal job with it. She also has the patience to deal with the portal slowing down and things of that nature, which has been great. So at this point in time, we have heard nothing that has set off any red flags by the federal government or that would make us believe that we are doing anything that's going to cause a problem somewhere down the line. Very confident. And frankly, we should be done with these projects pretty soon. I do have and I'm just, again, if I'm being a little too detailed, please tell me. I'm just going to be very, very brief and overview here. Year-to-date through through August 31st of '23, we've actually spent $7.7 million, and we've got $3.5 million that's very quickly to go out the door because we've got them encumbered. That gets us to about 11.2, and we've got approximately the remainder of 1.6 million to 1.7 million in projects that one of them, Councilman Del Santo mentioned, was the Pantone Park paving project. That's getting going, and other park improvements there. That's the lion's share of the funds that have not yet been either encumbered or spent, as well as some more MS4 work, basically cleaning our streets before stuff gets into the storm drains. And the federal government loved that from day one. So those are very high on our list and most municipalities' lists. So I won't get into that detail unless you want me to, and because I do have some detail here. So as of the quarter ending 6/30/2023, we filed on or about July 29th, I believe. We are pretty much copacetic with regards to anything that we have heard from the federal government. Now, in addition to all that being said, every grant that any municipality gets in the nation is required to be reported and audited almost separately from your general purpose audit, which you're all aware of, in what is called the Federal Single Audit Act. It's basically a carve-out of the federal monies that every municipality receives and done in a smaller version of the audit report, which I've sent to all you folks for the 22 fiscal year. You have that. Sometimes it doesn't get the same attention that your regular audit, your annual audit report does, but it's just as important. Those funds you'll see going back to 2020 fiscal year ending through 22, and in the 23 audit we're working on now, you will see those funds listed and what the auditing firm, our auditing firm does, to ensure compliance with not only those programs, but every federal audit. There's also a state single audit that works the same way for state-funded programs. So far, when it comes to the ARPA monies, we're in really good shape, and I'd be very surprised if there were anything that came down the pike in the future that would lead me to, that would have me to report that something happened. So far, so good.
Thank you, Jim, for your report. That's very good news. Tom, you had wanted to ask.
Yes. First, I'd like to thank the chairwoman for adding this as an agenda item. And again, I've been up here many, many times thanking Mr. Bowes, the town manager, Board of Finance, and the town council. From day one, the transparency and the detail that we've received as a council has been excellent. It's been a clear list that we can all follow and see where the funds are going. As recently as 2 weeks ago, and even so, more so, I think there was even more recent than that, we see towns arguing on the town council dioceses about where the ARPA monies are going to be spent. Which nonprofit are they going to give it to? One counselor says one thing, another counselor says another. It's really not good government. And I think that, I'm not here to badmouth what other towns did in this process, but I am here to really highlight to the public the responsible manner in which all levels of town government handled these excess funds from the federal government. I do also want to take it a step back, if I may. In November or December of 2021, I got excited because I was an auditor for many years for a public accounting firm, and it was noted that every single town in the state of Connecticut was going to be audited. This is November of 2021. They were going to be audited on the CARES Act funding, which was the COVID relief money, the first of it. So I said, great. Come to find out, there was a report issued February of 2023, right around the time when my son was born, so I wasn't as plugged in as I probably should have been. I called the town manager about a month or two ago, and I said, Mark, what happened? Anytime that we get up here and announce that there's an audit, it should automatically be that the results should be presented to the public. So there was no results. So come to find out, the State Office of Policy and Management changed gears a little bit, and they did, I'll call them spot checks on some of the towns, and then they did thorough analysis of 15 municipalities. And I suggest that all of us up here as elected officials and the public should read those reports and then read the way that Southington handled things. And I think you should be very proud of the work that you've done, Mr. Bowes, and your predecessor, Amelia, did a fantastic job. And I want to, this is certainly not anything that is going to be discussed at a campaign for election time coming up, but I do want to say that I'm very proud of my constituents up here on the Board of Finance and the council for the leadership that we presented to the state. So, and our town manager, of course. So I look forward to the next round of audits when they do come forward. So thank you all again.
Sounds good. That audit report that you mentioned for the CARES Act is actually on OPM's website. It's by the accounting firm of Cohn Resnick, C-O-H-N, R-E-Z-N-I-C-K. Cohn Resnick, a CPA firm that does a lot of work in the governmental area, was hired by OPM to selectively audit municipalities on a much more detailed level than the instantaneous audit that we're doing. It's a different portal. That this is state expenditures now.
Right.
State, federal money's being siphoned through the State Office of Policy and Management, and OPM is responsible to the federal government to make sure that they have procedures and policies in place to adhere to the federal regulations on how these funds get spent. So yes, when we do. Those funds have been spent by all the communities in Connecticut already. So when that was all said and done, all that information had to be loaded in a portal, which was the accounting firm. It was actually a link between OPM or the accounting firm's portal in very, very big detail: vendor name, date, check number, amount, explanation of what was done, et cetera, et cetera. And those were, again, matched automatically as soon as you hit that submit button and you submit that report. There are parameters through the technology that if you're sending off red flags, if you're spending more money on a certain item than those parameters are allowing for in that software, you're going to get a phone call or an email or a communication saying, hey, you need to provide more. So it's an ongoing audit every time you hit the submit button, whether it was ongoing with the federal government for the ARPA monies, or, like I said, the money that was siphoned in from the state under different programs, different tranches of money, if you allow me to call it that. Those have already been, excuse me, audited because they've already been spent. So, but yes, we were not chosen for more detailed audit by OPM and the accounting firm of Cohen Resnick. We did not set off any red flags. 15 towns were audited. They found some hanky-panky. You could read about that in the Cohen Resnick, but just to show you how ridiculous some of this stuff gets, there was a town in Connecticut that took some of this CARES money, like Tom just mentioned, and they spent it on their mobile bicycle team to buy bicycles, helmets, bicycle shirts, and bicycle shorts. And they used the justification that,
One of the things I think is very important to bring up is that the money that we received went back into the town for the infrastructure and
Yes.
things that all of our
Absolutely.
residents could
Yeah.
have.
we did, yes.
So that, I want to just leave it there at that. Anybody have any question or anything?
If there's
I
any
wanna-
questions that come up, I'm at the town hall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next thing I have is the Planet Bid contract. You established an ad hoc committee. Your representatives on there were both Mr. Del Santo and Mr. Perry. I thank them both for their hard work, along with Jay and Alex, and the other members of the committee who did all the research on it. They're recommending to you for bidding software Planet Bid for the annual sum of $19,887.67. This will, in my opinion, will help us, obviously, from an administrative standpoint, and certainly it gives Southington a broader reach. And I'll leave it up to Mr. Del Santo and Mr. Perry to take it from here if there's any comments.
Sure.
Jack, any comment?
Yeah, I just want to thank the all-town staff that helped work with me and Councilman Del Santo on this, and they did a phenomenal job. Jay Baker, he reached out to so many different companies out there that offers this type of service, and when we were watching some of the presentations, what my initial thoughts, were kind of reconfirmed in their presentations on how we could get more bidders, make this easier on town staff, and more bids means, more competitive pricing as well, without being burdensome to the town staff on how we, have to put documents together. So it's very unique for us to obviously, to do this. Other towns are doing it as well, but it just takes, this organization of everybody, and everybody worked in a phenomenal manner to move this forward. So I'm very excited to see what this is going to do. And, the first year, in the packet, you'd see there's a setup cost, which obviously goes away. And that was the other thing that Mark had a concern of, is he wanted this to end every fiscal year. And I believe, Mark, you have money already budgeted in this year's budget.
We're using
for
IT money this year, but it'll have to be budgeted next year.
Very good.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add is, just to echo the sentiments of Mr. Perry, that town staff did a phenomenal job.
Great.
They crossed every T and dotted every I, and I'm hoping there are lots of cost savings, but if anything, it's gonna save the town staff time.
Excellent.
And you can't put a dollar amount on that.
I think you guys worked very well together, and I think, again, thanking the town staff for their help in all of this. I think it's going to really make a difference. And I want to thank both of you for working so well. Tom, did you have a question?
Nope, I just wanted to thank whoever put it in the memo. I appreciate the fact that if there's no penalty to the town, if the future years of the contracts are not. So that gives the committee, maybe they reevaluate after 2 to 3 years to really see how it's working. So kind of gives us some flexibility, which was nice.
Very good. If there's nothing else, we'll move on, Mark.
Next item, Mr. Del Santo already touched upon. As you know, our in-house, we did most of the prep work, but we're asking for the council to approve Martin Lavero Contractors out of Bristol to finish off the parking lot at the Barnes Museum. for the sum of $50,164.66, which includes a 10% contingency on the actual bid. As you know, the Barnes Museum's parking lot has been actually way too small and not in the best shape, so we're making it bigger. And we're hoping this helps Christina and her crew to market the Barnes Museum in a better fashion.
What a great job she's doing, too. So.
Any questions on that?
Anybody?
I have one quick question. It's not to relate to that, but are you going to mention the memo from Jay Baker on our?
I had the same
Okay.
question.
Because I don't see it part of your thing, and it's in our
Well,
packet.
that's actually was something, was just for your edification, because most people wouldn't understand it, but we currently have Eversource, Everbridge, I'm sorry. Everybody has Eversource. Everbridge, which is our notification company. So if any of the public had received a phone call from the town saying that such and such road is closed, or we've had situations before where in a snow situation, we say the town hall is closed, et cetera, et cetera. Jay has switched that over to another company. You're not going to know the difference, because it's just a matter of, it gets to you one way or the other, but we switched from Everbridge to the new company.
Well, I just think it's important to recognize Jay for obviously, looking at things and obviously finding something that's better. Because obviously he's doing this because there's obviously some sort of benefit to the town. And it being an emergency notification, or could be used in that fashion, I think it's, shows that he's obviously looking out for the town's best interest, which is obviously awesome for us, so.
Yeah, Chris?
Just one more follow-up question with that, too. And I think you already answered it, but just to be clear, so for residents, they're not going to really see any difference. Does that mean the database that we use is going to roll from one system to the other
That's correct.
operating system?
We're not going to require everyone to do it all over again. So it's
Okay.
we have the database, and let me just say that if you want to be on this system and you have a cell phone, if you want to go on the town website, or contact Jay Baker, our IT director, and he will put you on there, because we don't have the database on all the cell phones, but now that everyone's getting rid of all their landlines, which is where we got our original database, but most people have called in on the cell phones at this point. But if you have not, please contact Jay Baker and have yourself if you want to be on the town notifications.
Great,
Thank you.
And I do not have executive session tonight.
thank you. All right, town attorney's report.
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair. I have two matters on, as is seen in the agenda, neither of which, as I understand, are on for action today, but more discussion by agreement. The first is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. As the council may be aware, may recall, this matter came up about 2 months ago, and there was some lively discussion, but it was ended with the understanding that there'd be future discussion in that regard. My understanding is Councilwoman DiPaolo and Councilwoman Dezak have had several meetings and discussions in that regard, and if it's going to be open for discussion today, it might be a good spot for either of you to, I guess, begin the discussion.
Yeah, let me just open it up. Val and Bill, if you could just help
Sure.
us out with this.
So we only met once.
Okay.
So Councilman Dezak and myself and our corporate counsel, Attorney Rick Ardone, we had a really good meeting, and I think, this issue was so important that and Bill can speak, but I think we were just looking at having this maybe go to the next term, because to try to have a discussion now on it would take up an awful lot of time. It's a really important issue, and we all agreed on that. We looked at other towns that have the housing trust fund set up. There's other action items that we could probably take along with the housing study, but we kind of feel like maybe this would be something to just bring to the next council term.
Yeah, and Val, I thought we had a great discussion, actually, not just limited to the trust, but, affordable housing in general, just our perspectives.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge lift, a huge drafting lift to get something like this going. And I think really what I took from that is that, affordable housing, it's a national issue. We're not the only town standing facing it, but it has grassroots solutions. So when you have something like that, Congress isn't going to get involved and give us guidance on how to come up with affordable housing. The state's trying, but really it starts with us. And I think as our town, grows and changes, we're going to need something, whether it's the trust, whether it's something else. I look at it from the developer's point of view, and, developers are going to chase yield, and they're going to pencil projects that make money. So take that and force it into a way to maybe make affordable projects more buildable. I don't, as I sit here, have the answer for that, but I think our discussion maybe gets it going, and maybe another council, takes it from there.
Right, I mean, I think the other piece of it is that, looking at some of the action items from the study, a housing advisory committee, we talked a lot about that, and that can go hand in hand with whether they recommend a housing trust fund, how that would be funded, how it would be implemented, how it, would be set up. So, yeah, I agree 100% with Bill. I think it's important for our town, and I think getting it to the next council and hit the ground running, would be great.
I agree. Does anybody else have any discussion matter on this? I think it's wise, actually. It's a very broad stroke issue, and it really does require the time to move. I want to thank you both for getting in on that and getting right in the center of it and coming up with that. Thank you very much. And next, Mr. Town Attorney?
Yes, Madam Chair, the second matter that I wish to bring up is with regard to the modification of the preferential bidding procedures ordinance. I believe everyone in the dais is aware of concerns that some town members have expressed. I provided the council with a legal opinion dated September 1st, 2023. While it was not asked, nor is it my position to give an opinion on it, other than the fact that it is consistent and compliant with our previous ordinance changes, as well as the rules and regulations, both state and federal wise. In a nutshell, and it's included in everyone's packet, there was a proposed change to the ordinance. In particular, it was section 118-22, which defines what amounts to a town-based business. I think the proposed changes speak for themselves.
Very good.
118.12.
118-12.
Yeah.
Right.
22.
I can't do that without glasses, as you can.
That's all right, I'm in the same place. Bill, would you like to talk a little bit more about this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Lou. Just sort of add to give the public a little more gloss to that. So I raised this concern on the floor in December of 2017 when the amendment to the preferred bidding ordinance was raised. I was not on council in 2008, but my understanding at the time is that really we're trying to give preferential treatment to Southington businesses that essentially are headquartered in Southington. That's my interpretation. Everyone up here can have their own interpretation. Chris, you sat on the council at the time. That was my interpretation. And I raised the issue because the way the ordinance is drafted, it limits your ability to qualify as a preferred bidder because you have to own real property in Southington. Does not matter. There's no discretion to the town manager. It doesn't matter if you pay personal property tax on your equipment. You have to own real property. And in 2017, I looked at it and I said, but what if you own, you have your garage, let's take the landscaping company. You own a garage and you own it in 123 Main Street LLC, but your landscaping company is called Southington Landscaping. You're not allowed, as it was drafted, to be a preferred bidder. Now, it's clear they're headquartered in Southington. They might own a house in Southington, the kids go to Southington schools. They're clearly a Southington-based business, but they're precluded. Now, the issue lay dormant until my understanding was a couple months ago, where people who were previously being acknowledged as preferred bidders were no longer preferred bidders. So the issue comes to us. So the proposal we're making for the public to have a public hearing on, I'm not gonna take any action tonight, is that it doesn't have to be that you own real property in Southington. You could have a lease, and you could be anything like that. But really what we think the simplest test, which avoids gamesmanship, is that, you, as a business, you have to have an address. You have to register with the Secretary of State's office, you have to have an address. So you can only have one. So it's not like you can have a P.O. box in another town that has something like this, and, your headquarters in a town. So it's a simple test. All right, where's your principal place of business? It's in Southington. Okay, just by virtue of that, you are a preferred bidder in Southington. You don't have to have, real property or, an LLC, give a quick claim deed back to the bidder, any of those games. So that's kind of what prompted this. So I'd hope that we can at least tonight send it for a public hearing, the public can come out, and if they have issues with that portion of the ordinance, then we'll hear it then.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris.
Just a procedural, and Lou, maybe it's just words based on what Bill just said. You said this isn't on, neither item in your report is on for action tonight. This actually is on the agenda for action. But to follow up on Bill's point, procedurally, this sounds like something, I don't know why we didn't go to the ordinance committee, which you chair, I mean, and vet it there, just like, all our committees, we go through that process so that we vet out some of this, some of the finer details rather than on the council floor. So instead of maybe going to a public hearing, I'm wondering, should we meet as the ordinance committee and then come forward with something so that when we go to a public hearing, there's actually information that the committee agrees upon?
You think that would be better than having a public hearing at this juncture?
Well, normally, we go through, for
I
ordinance
understand.
changes, we go through the ordinance committee. And I don't know, you mentioned we, I don't know who we is. I wasn't aware of this until the agenda.
Right.
I mean, if you feel that change, I mean, Chris, I understand your point, but this was debated in 2017. I think it's a very quick, I don't even want to call it it's like an administrative, it's a housekeeping issue with regard to the definition of how it's interpreted. I mean, to panel 7 volunteers for a definition change, I don't know. I think as a council, we can tackle an issue like this. I don't know when we need the ordinance committee debating the left, the right of it. It's not really like, we all agree, we voted on this twice as a council. We want to help a business headquartered in something like that. So the spirit of the ordinance already exists. I mean, if you really want to parse that definition further, I mean, I think the town attorney and the corporation council, I fixed this in like a couple of minutes. So I mean, that was our proposal. So I mean, you think it needs that much more? I mean,
I'm just saying,
You can, you want to finish?
yeah, I'm just saying, I guess the point is, all our committees, I mean, that's the function of, I mean, the Public Works Committee, the Open Space Committee, that's the function of those committees, is to review the finer details before it comes to the council. I just don't know why this jumped up to the council level and now a public hearing when we haven't even reviewed that, even as the members of the ordinance committee. That's my point. I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I just want to, because I just wanted to speak, I do think this is important for, I think it's really important for our local businesses to be able to have this, the preferential bids, and I do see the intent of it. So, Bill, what I really looked at is, I really then went to the wording of what's being proposed. If there's some changes maybe that we can consider, then possibly we can move forward or pass it along to Corporation Council, maybe to make some of the changes.
So it would be administrative then, is what you're saying?
It'd be more administrative, so when we have the public hearing, this language on what is the definition of a town-based business, I just feel could be cleaned up a bit
Yeah.
to make it a little bit more about what you're speaking about, bona fide business, principal place of business. So it's up to you if you wanted to do that from
So
here
protocol,
tonight.
let's just talk about that for just a second, so we're all on the same page. So we would send this back to corporate counsel? Is that what you're suggesting, Val?
Yes.
And then the corporate counsel would address the new wording? and
Well,
if-
I'd like to give suggestions of some of
Sure.
the wording that I
Might
think we
help,
might want to
yeah.
see in here.
Sure.
But
I-
I'd like
it
to
would
know
give-
the other
it would
council
give
members
ti-
are okay with that.
It would give an opportunity for input, especially with your expertise and Bill's expertise. And then the corporate counsel would return it back to the council once the administrative language is straightened out in terms of how our corporate counsel sees it, right? And then we would schedule it for a public hearing, and then we would work on it rather than having it go to the ordinance committee.
Well, listen, I tend to agree with Chris that I wonder why it didn't go to the ordinance committee, but
Yeah.
if it's not, you know, it's
I-
kind of like the same thing. What's the rush right now
Yeah,
to?
you know what, I think the fact of the matter is that because it was not such a huge change, that it was just a matter of a few words and nuances of that we thought we could get it out of the way and that we could go ahead. Not that we would cut any corners or anything, but it was administrative primarily, and it reflected the scope and the intention of the ordinance already. And we are the ordinance committee at the very end of it all. So it wasn't like we had some sort of, situation that was trying to put something over. It's a very simple, I think, and I'm certainly not an attorney, but to me, it's a very simple way of handling it. So, because Bill has actually drafted this, Bill, what do you think?
I didn't draft it.
Well, but you put in the changes.
I
Suggested.
suggested a change, yeah.
Yeah?
Did
And
did
so are
you,
you-
Bill,
are-
did you speak with Alex
Yeah.
about the?
Yeah. Alex sent it to me.
Okay,
Alex
that's
sent
what
it
I
to me as the
thought.
chair
I
of the
spoke with him
ordinance committee.
briefly.
I just
So,
want everybody to keep in mind that every day that this does not get resolved, local businesses are losing contracts because they're no longer preferred.
yeah.
So we can bounce this around for 3 or 4 months in
Well,
different
it won't,
committees.
it won't be 3 or 4 months. It would just, it
Whatever
could be
it
on
is.
at the next meeting.
And
needs to be
Jim, I
resolved.
think that's a very valid point, because we saw, when we finally realized that there are concerns about our local people getting blocked at this point, a change in it, now they're getting blocked, that we need to be able to change it as soon as we can for them. So that's the only pressure that we felt that it was important to bring.
There are-
And
there
if
are
we're
local
gonna-
businesses that are being denied contracts that would have got the contract in any other circumstance, but because of this loophole, they're now being denied.
Is this at the, because of the library?
It's been discovered because of the situation that occurred at the library.
So to that point,
But this
what?
does not impact the library.
No, I know that. So to that point, some of the language that I would suggest would help this, so that the business, it would be very clear, like adding evidence of a long-term lease. You know, have the wording bona fide principal place of business, just beefing it up so that it will help the local business to be a preferential
I
bidder.
think that it's fine if we send it back to Alex, and you would have time to discuss it and add certain things. I don't think that's a problem, right, Bill? You're okay with that? I'm new.
I feel that I've done my job for those businesses by expediting it,
Yeah.
assisting with the change of the language. I
Yeah.
think the language as is more than passable, but if people feel that we need more government involvement, more layers of analysis for definitional change,
So-
I'll defer to the council.
So I believe that that it needs to be expedited. So I would entertain a motion to return it to Alex and our town corporate counsel, and that we would look at it again at our next meeting. Because as Jim so eloquently put, people are experiencing difficulty now where they did not before. And Val, I would just say that if there are things that you feel that would help in that, the discussion on it, that you can certainly speak to Alex about it. He'll be the final say as to what comes back to this council for that motion, and hopefully setting a public hearing. So, is that, do I have a motion?
I just have
It's
a
not-
comment.
Oh, okay, go
I
ahead.
think when this comes back and the town attorney, the town manager can comment on this, I think this needs to be on the town manager letterhead the next time, according to our ordinance policy, right? This needs to be introduced by the town manager. If we see it for the first time,
Speak for a second, that's a legal opinion, it's not, it would be coming from,
no,
oh, I apologize, you're referring to the language change.
Yeah, I
It's
think-
on page 1 of the exhibit.
I think our policy indicates that this needs to come from the town manager if it's presented for the first time and it's going to be actionable. So just take a look at that and make sure that we're compliant with, yeah.
Okay, let's.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Jack.
So I just have a couple quick questions. How many times has this happened?
Well, the problem is that it's not, it doesn't matter if it was 1 or 100. The problem is that it's still an open situation that needs to
No,
be
I
addressed.
agree. I just heard that it was like, again, several times. So again, if this is obviously a big issue and us not hearing it prior. That's concerning. And again, I haven't bid anything since I've been on the council with the town, but previously I did. And my LLCs where my real estate is, and they're different LLCs. It's not my company.
Right.
And I was able to
Right.
get it.
Problem.
So, again, so everybody knows my company's in town. It's our only location. It's not like I have 5 locations, but it just, it gets back to the whole, I know we looked at the software with the procurement. I think that we should be relooking at our bidding practices too, because other municipalities have actual forms that you have to fill out in the bid document to be considered as a local preference bidder. And they mention that you may have to provide a lease or such, but maybe that's something that, with the new software, it could just be entered into our boiler template, that this is something that could just be filled out. And if you don't, you can't then come back after going, oh, you didn't submit the document to be in consideration of being a local business. I think that would help give them a tool as well to then understand that, being local, there's some positives, because there's other communities that I've bid on that have it as well, and they have that form. And some of them are way different, that you could just have a lease, which I think is kind of a gray area, because
What
then
I'd
people
like-
are just leasing places just for, the
What I'd like to
option
do
of.
is just get it over to Alex. That kind of thing can be discussed with Alex and see what he feels. My concern is the wording of this ordinance, that no one is left out of the process that shouldn't be. And so if that's okay with everybody, we'll send it to Alex. Chris, are you all right with that? Everybody's okay with that? But I do want a motion on this, though.
Well, wouldn't we just table an old business?
We could table it during old
Table the
business on the
schedule.
action item with at that point, we can say we'll send it to Alex to
Yeah.
review it. And then anybody here, if they would like, when they read it, can certainly make a suggestion. We need something that is clear, concise, and also readable for those of us who are not attorneys. So, all right, so thank you so much, our town attorney. We appreciate your input. And everybody, thank you. I know it's been a long meeting. I do know that. I'm very sorry. A lot of stuff going on, but right now we're at public communication. And so I've asked you, if you would like to address the council, that you come up. You will have 5 minutes. Give us your name and address, and we are here to listen. We are going to be cordial and honorable to all of you, and so let's get started. Hi.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Paniccia, P-A-N-I-C-C-I-A, resident at 7 White Oak in Southington. I work for a small engineering firm in East Hartford. You might have heard of them, Pratt & Whitney. So I understand implicitly just how difficult it is to manage complex projects with a lot of different players involved, in this case, the roads and the residents of the town. But I do want to echo my neighbors on LePage, Butternut, and White Oak. The road condition is deteriorating. I know the last survey was done in 2019. It's been 4 years of New England winters and summers and everybody else. So, definitely what the score was is significantly, I would say significantly lower than what it's probably going to be when that new report is released. I just wanted to say, I can speak for our neighbors. We definitely know the town is aware of the issues. We know that work is being done. We can see it when we have to get detoured off of Route 10 or on 322, whatever. So we know the work's being done. We just want to, reiterate that our area of the woods, definitely needs to be brought back in the forward place of mind. A suggestion I want to make, and actually I'm going to borrow Councilman Perry. So you sent out that survey on the trolley. It was a great survey online. I think you use SurveyMonkey, or one of the other ones is freeware. You can just create a survey and send it out. There's no cost. In a previous town I lived in, out of state, I was in Mississippi. They had something similar for Public Works, where residents could easily go to a website, say, hey, on the corner of Berlin Street and Butternut, I noticed that there's a pothole. Could you please just take care of it? And they could submit it. They could submit it online, on their phone, whatever. When I tried to submit something to the town, it was a little cumbersome. There wasn't an app. You kind of had to go to a couple of broken links on the town website to find a department, to be told that department doesn't handle that, go to another department. It's okay. I know technology is usually, never in front of people's minds. But it would be cool if the town could develop something like that, using Councilman Perry's survey as kind of a blueprint, on how to handle these kind of things and get public opinion, because now you wouldn't have to rely on an outside survey giving you results every 4 years. If I see a pothole, okay, boop, 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 pothole, Berlin Street, da-da-da, done, 30 seconds. And then you're hearing it from the town. And then, of course, it's not just going to be me who submits, it's going to be my neighbors, it's going to be my cousins, whatever. And all of a sudden, whoa, we just got 50 requests for this one pothole, and then it can be done instead of waiting 4 years for the survey. So that's the one thing. Speaking of White Oak and Butternut, I have noticed, and I'm a little bit more attuned because I just had my first daughter. She's a month old. So I'm like just back to work today too, so it's just been a whirlwind. But one thing that I did notice, especially during the summertime, the intersections of White Oak and Butternut, because it's like a crescent shape, no stop signs. And there's been too many close calls, especially now with the kiddos starting to get their licenses and the parents not judging them, but, buying them the BMWs and the Mercedes, and they want to, show off the speed and whatever. It's pretty dangerous. It is a three-way intersection. You should have a stop sign there. So I would, petition the board to install 2 stop signs at the corners of both ends of White Oak. And then if you guys want some opinion too, on LePage, I know there's a state trooper who lives on LePage. There's a couple of Southington officers that live in Butternut, White Oak. So I'm sure they could attest to the fact that it's a little bit of a speed demon area. So you just might relatively, 35 is okay, but 40, 50 in a residential, little dangerous. So you might want to bring that up. The very last thing I want to mention, I'm from Cheshire originally, so please don't hold that against me, but my first high school job I ever had was at a 7-Eleven. It's now a Hartford Healthcare in Cheshire, but I'm very excited for the 7-Eleven on Queen Street. I know a lot of people just probably roll their eyes and say, oh, another conglomerate, but the fact of the matter is 7-Eleven, at least in my opinion, kind of grew me to how I am now. Always really open to towns, doing stuff for the schools, and most importantly, the first responders. So if you haven't already, within the legal limits, reach out to them. Maybe they'll give the cops a cup of coffee on the house if they come and drive around Queen Street, and make sure that no one's getting on the wrong side of 84 and stuff like that. But I would highly recommend that, reach out to whoever it is that's going to be running the shop and say, hey, welcome to town. This is the law, whatever. You don't have to say, give me a coffee, but you just work that. There's something to be said about having just a nice little relationship with people, because, that can get on, and then hopefully we don't find ourselves on the front page of the New Haven Register like the town of West Haven, so we should be okay. Anyway, thank you very much,
Thank you
appreciate
so
it, have a
much.
good evening, thank you.
Thank you for your input, very interesting. Who's next, please? Thank you for waiting so long.
My name is Joni Roy. I live on 44 LePage Drive in Southington, and he pretty much received my, I met somebody down in the neighborhood, and they probably called you about our roads. But we do have issues on our roads, on LePage, Butternut, and White Oak. There's all kinds of cracks, potholes. Not only does this damage our cars, our neighborhood, one of our neighbors got a flat tire on the street. I ride my bike a lot, so I'm constantly looking down at the potholes. I don't want to, I've already had an accident, on a bicycle, and that's something that should be looked into. There's roads that need to be fixed. Our mailman is constantly complaining about the storm drains and they're higher than the street grade. The town guys don't even want to plow our streets when it comes wintertime. What does that tell you? The streets need to be fixed. Bottom line, the streets need to be fixed. I'm the one that started this petition, and that's probably why you got the phone call, because I was talking to somebody today on the street. And I got 64 signatures. Unfortunately, only so many can come, but I appreciate all the ones that did come. There they are. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
In the middle of the storm.
And I'm sure they can't wait to talk to you and let you know how they feel.
Would you like to submit that petition? Are
Oh,
you ready
sure.
to?
Oh, sure, yeah.
that
And
We'll put it in our
I do
minutes.
have some, I had 64 people sign it. I went around the neighborhood, either walked or took my bicycle around.
So is that your original?
Yes, original. My
Oh.
husband took copies on the phone.
You have copies of it? If not, the town clerk can do that too for you.
Take my bike around and watch, and dodge the holes and everything.
Madam Clerk.
It's
Joni,
really bad.
Joni, you got to go on the microphone, so people are watching at home, we don't want to miss a word.
I got carried away talking. But anyways, I have some pictures that I took of the streets that I live on, and there's others that want to talk and share their comments, but it hasn't been done in years. What else? That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
you for the, yeah, Paul?
Just maybe to the town manager, can we, just as a follow-up of all the discussion, Mark, can we maybe just have town staff take a ride down at this area to see if there's any short-term potholes, things that are within our purview of fixing that might be immediately?
Excuse me, the meeting's going on, excuse me. Pardon me, the meeting's going on. Thank you. So there was a question I wanted to make sure everybody got, but Paul,
Yeah, I was just asking the town manager if we could just have town staff go down in this area. I mean, we know that it's on the list for paving sometime in the future, but in the short term, if we heard testimony that there's potholes. If there's things that we can fix with our maintenance, that we can fix immediately, that would be helpful.
very good, thank you. Hi.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Council. I'm on 70 Butternut Lane. My name is John Susi. Been there for about 21 years. I don't recall the road being fixed before then, ever since I've lived there. When you were talking about the ratings, in front of my house is the 55. We have constant ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Every time a garbage truck, a landscaping guy comes down the road. I raised 3 boys, they're men now, but countless times they were woken up from the noise. We purchased our house, like I said, in 2000. It was only about 23 years old, and the people that we purchased it from was an older couple, the only people that ever lived there, and it was spotless. That's why we bought it. It was beautiful. I've got cracks in every single hallway, doorway in my house, and it's from the vibration. Everything is just, I have plaster ceilings, stucco ceilings, and they're all cracked. And I fix them, and a couple months later, ba-boom, ba-boom, they're cracked again. I don't think going around filling the little potholes is going to do anything, because they've done it 4 or 5 times in front of my house. That's why the noise is that loud. It needs to be smoothed out, and as I said, it's just, it's very noisy. It's done damage to my house, and I did check on it a couple years ago. It was probably about 3 years ago, and they did tell me, go online and look at the rating, and we were at like about 55 or 56. That's what we were at the time. I think it's getting real close to needing to get done. And really, that's all I wanted to say. My only other concern with the street, I'd love to bring up at another time, I don't want to get into it, is that stop sign at the top of the street is a death trap. I have almost been killed twice a week up there. No one stops. They fly right through it at 45, 50 miles an hour. They don't look into Butternut, as they just come up that hill and shoot right through, vice versa. You know what? I wouldn't care if you gave me a red light and gave them a yellow light, just so someone doesn't get killed, because it's going to happen. It's just no one abides by the stoplight, the blinking stoplight. It just doesn't happen. So if there's any way a light could be put there, I don't know. But that was only my other concern. But thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming out this evening. Sure.
My name is Loretta Barrett. My husband is Rich. We live at 143 Butternut. I had a very long, ongoing phone relationship with Gabe, starting back at least 5 or 6 years ago. I felt like I was getting the runaround, and then I found out that they had hired an outside consulting, the company you spoke of earlier, to evaluate all the roads. And I find it really hard to believe that even 4 or 5 years ago, Butternut was up in the 50s. I have a series of photos that I have taken of the road. And I would really appreciate if everybody, starting with the town manager down, would take a look at these and see the condition that this road is really in. And I would also strongly encourage or invite all of you to drive down the street with a new car and see the kind of damage that it can do. These patchwork jobs that they do, after the winter, they crumble. You drive down the street in the spring and it's splattering up chunks, chipping the paint on the cars. The patchwork has to stop. This road has to be fixed. I've lived here for 30 years, and all it has been is patchwork, no complete rip up, pave, fix the curbs. They're all in pieces sometimes. The storm drain in front of our house there's this much of it's sinking in. So when the plow goes by, similar to what John Susi said, it wakes you up in the middle of the night, you hear this big crash, and I watch it now. It's not funny, but I get entertained by watching the plow bump up in the air, and they're probably misaligning their front ends, they're probably breaking their plows. Nobody wants to plow it. I would like somebody to tell me and give me a reason why our street, and I'm on Butternut, LePage and White Oak, keep getting pushed to the bottom of the barrel, because I drive around town and waste gas, and I've looked at roads purposely to see the condition that they're in. Kerr Drive was just paved within the last couple of weeks, maybe a month. That road did not need to be paved. If you looked at Kerr Drive, and I have somebody here in the audience that has a relative that lives on that street, and she said herself, why is this road paved and yours wasn't? Is it because they pay more taxes? You know, I don't really know. But the bottom line is it's getting frustrating. People are getting angry, and we want to see results. If we have to go higher than our town council, we will, you know. That's what I have to say. I would. Yeah, so now I will let my husband, can I approach and
Sure,
give
of
this
course.
package?
Just give it to us. We'll
And
put it in our minutes.
Please pass it around and let everybody see it so you can see the true condition. And I invite all of you to drive down the street and see what it's like. You have to, it's like an obstacle course.
Thank you very much.
Actually,
Yes.
I didn't have that much more to add, just I wanted to make sure you saw the pictures. And again, 2019, a survey done, now 3 years later, 4 years later, another survey is being done. We've been fed this since I've been there, 1991. Now, I think it was 2013, before you got the survey company doing this. I thought then we were put on a schedule for 2016. I could be wrong, but I know it was like a 3-year gap, going back maybe 10 years ago. Nothing ever happened. So I'm not sure why I would believe this company that is supposed to make it fair is really, I don't know how they do their surveys. The best way, like John said, we hear the plow during the winter. It startles you. Your front end, just drive down over the bumps, and it's every 20 feet, the road is cracked, there's grass, and there's birds getting run over by cars, because they're eating off these grass strips, because it's every 20 feet.
And they're this deep.
Yeah, so you don't know, you're driving down, next thing you know, you're killing birds that are eating off the road. So we're just getting the feeling, I don't care if you want to raise my taxes and we give it to the police and the fire department and things like that, but you raise my taxes and we don't get really anything for it. I've put no children through school, didn't go through school here, so my 62% of the mill rate going to education isn't getting me much. I'd like to have a nice road to drive on.
Point well taken.
One more thing, and we even have company that has come over, and they get to our house and look at us and say, what is up with your road? People that moved in next door to us, they love the house, the neighborhood is nice. They said the same thing, what's up with the road? Are they ever gonna fix this? So that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
And please, I encourage everyone, please look at those pictures and take a ride down our street and down LePage and down White Oak.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Deb Schwartz from 138 Butternut Lane. So I won't beat a dead horse too much here, but just wanted to reiterate a couple of things, which is we have a neighbor across the street. His name is Jim. He's an avid bike rider. It's not unusual for him to go out on a 50-mile bike ride. He states, it's his opinion, that Butternut Lane is the worst road in Southington. So I think he's been all over the place. So I'd say he's pretty close probably to that statement. My other thought is, or my other point is that we have 3 families that I know of, a couple on LePage and one on White Oak with kids with special needs. And they're using their wheelchairs and their motorized bikes. I think, typically they stay to the sidewalk, but if they need to get over on the road or anything, it's concerning for them. It is an obstacle. They could, injure themselves using their equipment and stuff. So that is a big concern of mine. The other thing is we have Halloween coming up. We're kind of a fun neighborhood where we bring in, I'd say 80 to 100 kids typically come to my home. It is a fun night, but that also means lots of activity in the neighborhood, kids running across the street, and we have to yell out, be careful, watch the potholes, be careful, be careful. They're all over. There's no getting around them. There's no avoiding them. So that's another concern of mine. The fixes, the temporary fixes that they do, they come in with, I'm not really sure what the terminology is, but the black rocks and the gravel, and they spread it, and they appear to use some kind of equipment to press it down, but it doesn't last. So 3 days later, those rocks and that gravel's getting all kicked up over the road. And then it's just more of a mess, almost to the point where I wish they wouldn't even come in and do that temporary fix because it doesn't really take. So I am sitting here praying for a mild winter because like other people said, I dread hearing those plows and they're gonna, they smack the bottoms and it sounds like the whole road is shaking. So there's a lot that needs to be done in the area. So thank you all for your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Roy, I wanted to just say that this is the best way to get our attention, and I appreciate you coming. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight?
Good evening. Mike Tabor from White Oak Drive. I moved into the neighborhood more than 10 years ago, and the roads were really bad back then. Just to get to my house, I had to go down Butternut. And, back then the neighbors said, yeah, don't worry about it. It's on the list. It's going to be paved. It's coming up in the next 2 years. And that was more than 10 years ago. So, I know a lot of folks in the audience have kind of lost faith in getting the road repaved. I think the good news is that the survey, and I looked online during the meeting at all the ratings, it is spot on. I mean, the worst road is that section of Butternut from Berlin to White Oak. It is unbearable, and that, 4 years ago, that rating was a 55. Well, what does 55 mean? That's just a number, right? So 55 is unbearable. And on a bicycle, and I'm also a bicycle rider, and I can go out and ride 30 miles a day. It's unpassable. You can't ride a bike, and a lot of these bikes today have these fancy carbon fiber frames, and you go out there and you hit this 8-inch hole in the road. I mean, you break your bike, right? And I heard about flat tires. I've had struts on the suspension of the car break because of all the problems with the road on Butternut. It's not getting any better. It's just getting worse. So I think, we're all excited to get the results of the next survey. I think as far as the numbers, and having ridden on all these roads in a car and a bicycle, the numbers are right on. I mean, you got it in the exact order that it needs to be repaired. So I would follow that, and of course, my recommendation, the engineering recommendation would be to start with Butternut and that 1,400-foot section that absolutely needs to be done. It's unbearable, so, thanks.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter or any other matter?
I'm Donna Pally, and I'm on 47 LePage Drive. And I'm here for all the other ones that are here complaining about the roads. And hopefully something will be done. I won't keep going on because they already said everything. I just hope you recognize that and we can get something done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are we all set? Is there anyone else?
Other matters?
Any other matters?
We have time.
Of course, of course.
No intentions of speaking. However, I've been on 66.
Could I have your name and address, please?
Sure. I'm Deirdre Hillen, and I live at 66 White Oak Drive. I've been at 66 White Oak Drive for 46 years. We're one of the originals. Now, the road is so bad, when the snowplow comes through in the wintertime, we have like the manhole cover out in front of the house, it actually knocked it off. Not only is the road bad, it looks bad, it looks like a patchwork quilt, but also, what about the value of our homes? I feel like it really does not help the value of our homes in that area. And I think that's sad, because we pay just as much in taxes as everyone else in town does. And I think it's important that we also have the benefit of some decent roads. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, with that, I'm going to close public communication. Is that all right with everybody? So public communication is closed.
Madam Chair, can I just make a request? Obviously, we're going to address the road issue, which we've heard repeatedly, but we also heard from a couple residents, Mr. Susi and Mrs. Roy, about the concerns with the stop sign and the lights.
sign. I've got
Can
it
we ask
written
the
down.
chief to look into that?
Yes.
And then maybe he can get in touch. Again, I think it was Mr. Susi and Mrs. Roy who were the two that specifically mentioned that, and maybe they can get
Yes.
in touch with them, and you can share that with your neighbors as well.
I think that that's very important, Chris. I've had it
I
written
want to say
down.
that they're saying the stop sign is missing on one of the internal roads in the neighborhood, which is, doesn't sound right.
So-
I think the other thing was the stop sign on Berlin Street.
On Berlin Street.
People are just.
So as we close down public communication, I just want to thank the residents of those three streets in that area. You have made your concerns very well heard tonight, and I think that's true for all of us sitting on this dais. We are not done with this. We are going to go forward. Thank you for the petition. Thank you for those that handed in pictures and what have you. We've heard you tonight. The town manager is going to take another look, and he'll be in touch with our Public Works Department. We'll take one step at a time, but you were heard tonight, and we heard you tonight, all right? Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to give you a chance if you want to go home, because we know it's going to take you a little time, but we're going to move on with the program. If you're ready to go, we'll give you a chance. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, take care, everybody. Thank you so much. All right, members,
Thank you.
council members, we're on old business. Jack is here, everybody's here, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Item A is the scheduling of a public hearing for modification of preferred bidding procedures ordinance for the preferred bidding.
Motion to table?
Second.
Okay, have a motion to table on this, is there, and there's no further discussion on it, all right? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I oppose it. Not with leaf and snow coming up. Not waste time.
Okay, so we have one opposition. Thank you, Bill. All right. Very good. Item B, action on supervisor's union contract.
So moved?
Second.
Val, did you
Yes.
give the, and second, okay. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, would you please call the roll, Madam Chair? I mean, Madam Clerk, I'm the chair.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Item C, action on the Planet Bids contract.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to award it to Planet Bids based on a recommendation.
A second, Madam Chair.
Okay, very good. Is there any further discussion on this matter? Hearing none, I would like the clerk to call the roll, please.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Item D, action on the recommendation for Barnes Museum parking lot.
I'll make a motion to award the contract to Laviero Contractor for $50,164.66.
Second.
I hear the second. Any further discussion on this? Any questions or
That
anything?
lot is needed. It looks great so far. Town staff is doing a great job
Yeah.
prepping it. It's going to look great when it's done.
Very
And
good.
Matt, it sounds like it will be done before the Apple Festival.
Yes, it's not going to interrupt.
Interrupt it, right?
That's the goal, yes.
Is that?
Very good. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Very good, it passes unanimously, thank you. Action on the EV charging station.
So, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this, but I know there are some questions. So, I want to ask the questions first.
Well, let me go. let me go
I'll
through
second,
what-
I'll second for discussion and
Okay,
then.
Fine, okay.
we're opening
In your middle of the
discussion.
motion, do I have permission to talk?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
This is my understanding of the project. I spoke with both Annette and Jim and I, and Christine already spoke with her also. My understanding is, obviously, Eversource is giving the vast majority of the grant, and we have a block grant for the rest of it. The actual units will be placed on town property and owned by the town of Southington. The town of Southington sets the rate. I've asked Jim and Annette to work very closely, because obviously, we're gonna need a maintenance contract. We're gonna need all costs, plus a buffer. So, before we do anything, I need to know, well, obviously, move forward with it, I have no problem with that. But before we set any rates, I need to make sure the taxpayers are fully corrected on this, so therefore, protected on this. Therefore, what I need is to make sure I have all those numbers in, because since we own it, we're gonna need a maintenance contract. We're gonna have to make sure, figure out what the actual electricity we're gonna be using on it. One of them is at the municipal center, but my understanding is it's gonna be self-metered. All these are gonna be self-metered, so we're gonna understand how that works. We're not using the spot where the municipal center is, it's gonna go over by the trail. So that being said, the meter should not be an issue. We'll know how much electricity we're using. So it may take a couple of months for us to figure out the actual kilowatt charge, but we wanna make sure we factor in all that. There's stuff we're not gonna, there's always administrative stuff that we're not charging for, obviously. Because when you put a credit card through, just like if you pay your taxes with credit cards, there's an administrative situation where the money goes into a fund, and then it gets transferred into whatever town fund we want it to go in, which will probably be a singular fund just for this purpose, so we could make sure that there's enough funds to handle the situation. I don't want it to be, it's not my goal to make it, a big moneymaker for the town, but it can't possibly be for a loser for the town. So I'm looking to make sure, and asking Jim to make sure we have a small profit on it. And that just protects everybody, including the taxpayers on it. So that's my understanding, talking to both Annette and Jim 2 days ago.
So what you're saying then, Mark, it's all right for us to proceed with the motion that's in front of us but I really believe that we should be involved in the final decision on the rate and that. So, I mean,
Certainly, well, I have to make the decision on the rate, because I want to make sure exactly the parameters I told them. I'd be happy to bring it to you and say why I'm charging this. It's good, the public needs to know why I'm charging whatever I'm
Right.
charging. But you have to understand that this is not going to be a situation where we're going to be subsidizing this with taxpayer dollars. I want to make
Right.
sure that whatever the costs are, plus a little bit of a buffer, because sometimes electric rates fluctuate, and I want to make sure. But as you know, we'll have the ability to change. Since they're ours, probably within a short period of time, depending on how quickly you can change these, we can move them up or down if electric rates fall. That being said, I know a couple of questions were, is this going to be a third party? The only third party that's going to be involved in this is the actual credit card. That's the only third party, because we don't do direct credit card. It goes to a third party and the money comes to us.
Right, right. So are there any further questions or discussion on this? So hands are up all over the place. Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am absolutely not in favor of this motion this evening, for the sole reason that the town is not in the business of providing fuel to vehicles. This market is going to be naturally taken care of by existing gas stations. Many gas stations already are installing electric charging stations. Furthermore, I don't want the town council or the town manager to determine how much we're charging people. I also see a liability issue. If there's an accident, what if a car smashes into one of these things? It creates a burden on our finance department. We have to reconcile credit card payments and withdrawals and all the things that go along with it. Who's going to replace these units when they become obsolete in 5 to 10 years? So basically, this is certainly not a core competency of our government, local government, and I think this is better suited for the private industry to handle. So I'll be a no on this motion.
Thank you, Tom. I'm going to take Val, and then I'll get to you,
I
Jim.
just had a question on capital equipment. So
Oh, okay.
if it does become our equipment and somebody drives over it and destroys it, do we have to carry insurance on that? And who replaces it?
It's automatically be carried on our insurance, but there's a deductible, so he's correct in that. We don't have a zero deductible on personal property, so depending on what they classify it as, it could be a $5,000 deductible.
Vandalism could be rampant.
Okay.
Thank you.
Val?
And just asking, you might have mentioned it, so the grant is going to cover the town cost for installation, right? So it really is then maintenance each year, network fees,
It's
things
us,
like that,
yeah.
and that's what you're,
Electric use, too.
electric use. Are you going to have a good sense of what the maintenance costs could potentially
The
be?
maintenance contract. We've been
For
getting,
what is the term of the contract?
well, it would be, what we do with most of our equipment, we get a maintenance contract, they're usually annual maintenance contracts, and that factors into whatever the cost of the kilowatt hours are.
So it's an annual contract?
Well, sometimes you could do more than 1 year and get a better rate, but
Yeah.
at a minimum, it'd be a 1-year maintenance contract.
Right, which probably makes sense because with the rate.
We have nobody on staff who's able to specialize in fixing these, so it'd have to be a
Right.
maintenance contract.
Thank you.
Anybody, oh, yes, Jack, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my opinion on this is there's obviously a grant, which is going to subsidize the cost of what the electricity is. If we get a private contractor, there's not going to be a grant potentially, and then they're going to have to charge more. So if you want the best bang for our residents and the visitors in our community, this is something that I think we act on today because there's a grant. And then we revisit it. When they need to be replaced, the market may change, and at that point, there may be enough gas stations that have the EV charging that's going on, but it's also a concern that, other towns have this amenity to their visitors and such in the downtown areas. So I don't want to discourage somebody that has an electric charging vehicle going, oh, I can't go to Southington or downtown or whatever because we don't have those amenities. And maybe they're going to West Hartford instead of supporting our community. So it's kind of, I kind of am a little torn on this, but, today, the best bang for, the users is us taking advantage of the grant, putting some money away towards the maintenance, potentially a deductible. And I would just like to see that money earmarked and not taken out of there so that when, there's improvements, expansion maybe, or another potential grant, and it's like, hey, this one's getting a lot of usage, we could put another one there. But I agree with Tom, eventually this will go. It's kind of like, the government, has done a lot over the years and got involved in certain things like recycling. My industry, they got involved and they subsidized it back in the early 90s, late 80s. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. Now in my industry, they're trying to subsidize food waste, processing and trying to get that out, but it costs more to strip it out than it's worth. But again, having programs that kind of offset it so that it doesn't go to the end user sometimes works. So I think this is something that would be an amenity to our residents and visitors. And then I think when we come up with that dollar amount, or when Mark does, we just kind of, earmark that money that, again, if there's surplus, maybe then we change the rate, so it's like, hey, look, this is yielding, 10%, and it's really only 3%, so let's bring it down to 3. Oh, now it's 4%, so let's go back up to 5. It allows us to move it. I just don't want to see that money being taken out and used for anything else other than this project.
Thank you. Chris?
Just a suggestion, the reason, as Mike said, this was on the agenda, off the agenda, on the agenda, off the agenda, at Public Works. The reason we did move it forward, to your point, is because there was grant funding and it was free,
Zero cost.
essentially. So, I don't, Mark, I don't even know if you know this answer tonight, because Annette's not here to ask, but is there an urgency because of the grant? If not, maybe we table this too, get some of these answers. You know, there were a lot of questions asked before we have to vote on it. The only urgency would be if the grant is going to expire.
Public Works, I'm not sure if you talked about is there a grant timeframe?
I don't.
We
think so.
don't-
I
we don't talk-
She didn't
we didn't
mention
talk
it.
about a
Usually she
timeframe.
does. She just got the, I don't know.
My understanding from when we talked about it for the library, it had to be completed in the 12-month period once you applied for the grant. We couldn't do it at the library at the time because this was back during the budget.
Yeah.
So we weren't gonna have it done by that time. That's the only restriction I had heard about. I don't know anything about the second part of the block grant. That's something you guys discussed at Public Works.
We did, but she didn't give us a
Was
timeframe.
Adam there?
No.
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 Adam would know both those questions.
Yeah.
I don't know
This
that.
literally came up
Last minute.
like last Friday before our meeting when I got the agenda. Okay. Yep.
Bill?
I do just want to say one thing. I think Councilman Lombardi's spot on. I mean, I don't think the benevolent Eversource is just giving us money. There's definitely, looks like a carrot, but I just fail to see how this is a sandbox that local government should play in. I mean, I think the fuel industry, the energy industry should do this themselves. I don't want the liability, so I agree with Councilman Lombardi.
Okay, anybody else? Paul?
Yeah, I also agree with Councilman Lombardi. You know, I am, I do have concern about the ongoing maintenance, the insurance, the vandalism. I mean, we see the vandalism every day in every area of the state. So I do have some concerns about the ongoing liabilities that the town residents and the taxpayers may have to afford. I think that that's a discussion that needs to occur here at the town council. I'm open to the table if you want to look at it a little bit more. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure if my mind would change, you know, if the town still has liability for all that.
I'll make a motion to table. I mean, let's
I'll
find out the
second a
answers.
motion to table.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to table this matter for discussion at a future date? No, at a future date. I will bring it back. Let's just take the roll on that because it is a motion to table.
Perry?
No to table.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
No to table.
Dietzick?
No to table.
Lombardi?
No to table.
Morelli?
No to table.
Palmieri?
Yes.
No.
Triano?
How did that come out?
So your original motion is back on the floor.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve this, right? Is the motion to approve?
Yep, I made the motion, and Mr. Palmieri.
Then Mr. Palmieri.
Seconded.
Okay, so we have a motion, a yes motion, B, that it's approved. So, Madam Clerk.
Well, I just have one more.
Yep, go
one more
ahead.
discussion topic. I have every confidence in the town manager. I made it very clear, and actually through an email, that I would expect this to be cost negative for the town. So I have every confidence he's going to ensure that the fluctuation with the rates will keep it cost negative. I think the green initiative is important. I don't think the taxpayer should be paying for it. So like I said, I have every confidence to Mark and his staff to ensure that there's not going to cost the taxpayers a significant amount of money.
Okay, anyone
Madam
else?
Chair?
Okay, so
So
Val, why don't you go?
I agree with that, with what Mike says. I think it is an important initiative. I have confidence in our town manager too, but I just believe there is just too much information that he doesn't know, we don't know, as far as insurance and vandalism and maintenance and change in the equipment, right? As it becomes better equipment and, so.
Jack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, again, the town staff brought this to Public Works, right? You know, we staff, I think our town staff is amazing. They do a phenomenal job. And I think a no vote tonight, and this is my opinion, is kind of not entrusting our town staff. This has been something that's been hot and cold, and I don't think we should discourage our town staff from bringing something back up because the opportunity is there. So originally, our concern was the cost. Now it's cost neutral. Town staff did more than what they were expected. They could have just said, hey, we're not going to look at this anymore because it's not a hot topic issue. But they're doing their job on a daily basis. So I would just, err on the side of caution of no, because you don't want to discourage them to continue to look for things if we're just going to not support them. And our concerns were cost. Now we're cost neutral. So now it's vandalism. You can't live in a box, but we need to make sure that we are making efforts that are green. And the electric vehicles, my brother's a car salesman, a manager, and that's the way that they're going. And they're changing model numbers to, like my car, it says 600. I go, what does that mean? He goes, they're making an EV model of yours, and they'll be able to cross-reference like horsepower or whatever, it's used. So this is something that isn't going away. Garbage trucks, they even make them fully electric now. So I test drove one at the Waste Expo 2 years ago, and it was awesome. Very quiet. They're just trying to get the longevity out. So I just think that, we need to support our town staff. And that's just my argument is that they did what we asked them. We wanted cost neutral. We're there now. So let's, support them. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dees.
Just to play the other side of Jack's point, and Jack, I understand, I don't want to disrespect town staff. If they put the effort in, they put the work in. We've considered it and vetted it, though. That's our job. It's not like we just dismiss it out of hand. Really what it is, it's death by 1,000 cuts. So we're going to have a bus now in town. So we're going to have little bus, I don't know what they're going to call them, bus stations or whatever they are. We're going to have to take care of those now. We don't really know the cost on those. We think we know what they're going to cost. Now we have EV charging stations. We don't really know what our deductible, what our coverage is going to be, what they're going to cost. That's really what it is you see the creep from the state, you see the creep from Eversource. And I think our job is to kind of draw the line in the sand and say, I don't know if we want these. Let's operate a little bit more thin, and I don't know if we need these. I'm sure the offer will still be there in a couple of years, but that I guess would be the counter to that, Jack.
Okay, are we, okay.
One last thing.
All right.
The only thing that this motion, a yes vote, would benefit would be Eversource. This doesn't benefit the residents at all. Actually, I would disagree with Councilman Perry and say, I think that this creates more work for town staff. This is going to create more work for the town council. This is going to create more complaints for the town council to say, why is the town charging this rate for electricity? It should be free. And then all of a sudden, the future town council is going to have to be, well, are we going to give out free electricity? Eversource wins with these votes. And electric vehicles probably are the future, Councilman Perry, but that doesn't mean that we have a responsibility to provide free electricity, nor do we have the responsibility to provide free gasoline for today's vehicles. This is better suited for the private industry, plain and simple. Let's keep government out of this. Let's protect our town manager. Let's protect future town councils.
Okay, Chris.
Just one other point with the vote tonight. This vote is just to move forward with the recommendation to install them.
Yeah.
There's a separate whole conversation about the policy and how much we charge and insurance. There really are two separate issues. Right now, the memo's right in front of all of us. This is only, the action tonight is only to move forward with the grant funds to cover the expense. We already have the charging stations sitting out there. They haven't been damaged all these years. We haven't worried about the insurance. Those are all valid points, and those are the next step. But tonight, again, just before we vote, the vote is simply to fund them using the grant as outlined by our Public Works Director.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to weigh in on this myself. And my feelings are that we don't have enough information on this. I'm all for going green. And certainly, again, not to take anything away from our town staff. But this is the first step, as Chris said. But why would we take this step not knowing what's behind the curtain? I think that we need to be able to know much more. And a no vote today does not mean a no vote in 6 months or 3 months or whatever. We can revisit this when a lot of those questions have been answered. So that's kind of where I am right now. But we do have a motion on the floor. I think we've talked about this quite extensively. So, Madam Clerk, the motion is to approve. So a yes vote is to approve. A no vote is not to approve. So, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
No.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
No?
Dietzick?
No.
Lombardi?
No.
Morelli?
This is a crack in the road in Butternut. No.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
I would say no at this time. So it does not pass, is that correct? Was that
Does not
counted
pass,
correctly?
6-3.
Okay. As I said, at a future time, we can revisit this and see if some of those questions that have stopped us tonight can be answered, and we can move forward. All right, thank you, everybody. Good discussion on it. New business, tax refunds?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that are presented in our packet.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, let's move on to appointments. Board of Ethics, one member. It is a Republican seat. Do I have a name?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Brian Zaccanino from 301 Pineview Drive. He's currently an alternate on the Board of Ethics, so this would be moving Brian from an alternate to a full sitting member.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call the roll.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go on to, we received a letter of resignation for Commission for Persons with Disabilities. It's currently a Republican, however, we will discuss this a little bit. Does someone have a name?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Amber Walsh. And if someone wants to second it, I can then give some of her background.
I'll second it.
Is that okay? Give the background.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
I am not familiar with Amber at all.
Okay.
She's probably very good, but I'm not familiar with her.
Right, so I have a bio I can
Okay.
read a little bit. She does live in Southington, 46 Hart Street. Oh, no, Hart Street. Right, yep, thinking Hart Acre. So she graduated from McGill University and also from Yale University with a master's in business administration. She currently works as a senior associate director for admissions for the MBA program at the Yale School of Management. She's worked for several nonprofit organizations where she focused on access, care, and education, including the Peace Corps, the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, Save the Children, and a couple other organizations. As a first-generation college graduate, she's very passionate about paving the way for others to have access and support to achieve their goals. So I think she'd be a good addition to the commission.
As we know, of all of our commissions, we try to keep politics out of it because we were talking about people who need help. And so, her name Amber's name has been brought up with a second. Is there any other discussion on this matter?
Just to thank Jessica Rydell for her service on the committee.
Very good, yes, she was very, very good. Anybody else have any discussion? Hearing none, let's call the vote, please.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
DiPaolo?
Yes?
Dietzick?
Yes.
Lombardi?
Yes.
Morelli?
Yes.
Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes, and just so happens, Amber, that the commission is represented tonight with Melissa Halgren and also Mary Barbagallo, so it might be good if you touch base with them tonight. Very good, welcome to the board. Oh, I thought you kind of looked over there, next to Erin, I'm looking and saying, well, maybe she's behind somebody, I'm not seeing her. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
She can hear you, don't worry.
Oh, good, okay, very good. I would just say for the record, this, so it brings the makeup of the commission to 2 Democrats, 2 unaffiliates, and the rest are Republicans, and so I think that's good. Okay, so let's move on. We've got the Seed Commission, and we have 4 members, 2 of which are staff. So Mark and Lou Perillo would be automatically reappointed. I believe I'm the one that makes these appointments. Is that correct, Mark? Or do you do it?
No, actually, it's a council. It's a council
Okay,
subcommittee.
very good. So, so Mr. Pocock has been serving on the Seed Commission, but it was as a liaison to the council. And so I am looking for a name from the council that it would be seated on the Seed Commission. Do I have a name?
Madam Chair, I'll put Mr. Bill Dietzick up for the Seed Commission.
So we have a
I'll
name?
second.
Second. We have a name, Bill Dietzick, and a second. Is there anybody else? Hearing none, let's call the roll.
Okay, is this for Shota, Perillo, and Dietzick at the same time?
Oh, well, we just thought you would automatically be on. No?
You have no choice, so yes, we are.
Yes, so
It's
you're
just a
on,
vote
you're
it.
on.
Okay, fine.
Let's go with Bill's name.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So on the website, for certain people,
Yes.
there's requirements listed, like
Yep.
Michael Riccio, business rep.
Right.
Right? Mark Shota, town manager. Lou Perillo, economic development director. For others, there's no qualifications for them, so it makes it really unclear. Juanita Champagne, Lucio Casano, Ed Pocock, Dana Ricard. There's nothing listed, whereas others say business community and.
That Ed was liaison to the council, and he might have gone on when he was chairman at that time.
Kathy will have it right there, I'm sure.
Oh, you have it right there?
All right, Juanita Champagne, she was the neighborhood
Representative?
representative. And what other name did you?
Ed Pocock?
Lucio Casano.
She was college, she worked for the college or something?
College, yep.
Okay, Ed
Check.
Pocock.
Council rep.
And Dana Ricard.
Probably business.
Is it-
Dana Ricard.
the business owner.
Okay. So, if we could, after the vote tonight, I think the website should be accurate.
Oh, I do too.
Because
I do too.
all the other, I didn't ask about the other people because they're labeled here. So,
Right, right.
you know, just so it's
Yeah, and
transparent.
I had gotten the information from, indirectly from the clerk's office. So, so we have Bill Dietzick. Bill, would you accept?
So Bill Dietzick for Pocock, and then you have one more.
Yes. So we're going to vote on Bill Dietzick right now. We have a
You guys want me to
motion.
leave the dais, or what would you want me to do? Mr. Mark, Attorney Martach, should I leave the dais, or?
Can you go away in the parking lot?
Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Perry?
Yes.
Chaplinsky?
Yes.
Del Santo?
Yes.
Gallo? Hardy?
Yes.
Morelli? Palmieri?
Yes.
Triano?
Yes, thank you, everybody. The other name that has come up is Dave Zoney. I mean, Mr. Zoney's here. He's a Democrat, but he's on for the business slot. I have no problem. Can we have a motion,
I'll make a
please?
motion for Mr. Zoni.
I'll second.
Very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, congratulations, Mr. Zoney.
Meeting tonight at 10. 10 p.m.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, do we want a motion?
Second.
I'll remove my motion.
Do we want a motion for the other two just to make it official? I know we
We
have to,
could,
but.
we could. Why don't we just
I'll
do
make
it?
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
reappoint Mark Shota and Lou Perillo.
And I'll second Chris's.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor for Lou Perillo and Mr. Shota signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to adjourn?